My name is Yujin Choi. I have a PhD in neuroscience from Harvard University.
My name is Heidi Wolburn, and I obtained my PhD from UCLA in 2002 in the Department of Biological Chemistry.
I'm Dr. Mike Durrell. I have my PhD in biomedical research from the Scripps Research Institute. Basically, why I went to graduate school is because I really enjoyed science, and honestly, I probably did this in a route that I wouldn't recommend for others, but it got to my senior year and I really didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was good at science, and people said, "You're going to graduate school, right?" So I decided, yeah, I must be going to graduate school. So I started applying to graduate schools, and in doing so, I learned a little bit more about what they are like and reasons that I actually would want to go.
The reason that I went to grad school, the reason that I pursued a PhD, stems from when I was little. I wanted to be a teacher, and I kept doing well in school. So people eventually started telling me, "Oh, you shouldn't be just any kind of teacher, you should be a professor." So I said, okay. And then I got to college and all the professors had PhDs. So I thought, okay, I guess I'm getting a PhD. In college, I was a biological sciences major at UC Irvine. And when I hit organic chemistry, which was a requirement for biology, I felt like I finally hit something that I just could not understand. It was just so hard. Organic chemistry was so hard. That's when I had kind of a crisis. And I said to myself, if biology requires organic chemistry, but I can't understand this, like, should I continue to be a bio major? Is this the right thing to stay with? And thankfully, my wise decision was to go to a biology professor and say, can I try actually doing biology? So I know if if I should stick with being a bio major, because I'm finding some of the coursework really difficult, and I don't know if I should stay. And he said yes, so I joined his lab towards the end of my sophomore year, and found it fun. I found the research process fun. There were parts of my daily work that were not fun, but I was willing to put up with it. And the parts that I didn't enjoy were decapitating rat pups. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, a little disturbing, but it was a neuroscience lab, and they were studying the developing brain. How do you study a developing mammalian brain? You got to take it out of the animal. So, yeah, but besides that very visceral, oh goodness, part of it, the problem solving aspects, the fact that my supervisor, the scientists in the lab, were constantly reading about new things and thinking and brainstorming about the next experiments to do, like, that seemed really fun.
The reason I went to grad school was because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I just felt like I wasn't done learning, and I loved the structure that comes with an academic institution, and I just wasn't ready to leave. So I, at the time, had for undergrad majored in chemistry and religious studies, and I actually wasn't sure which way I wanted to go with regards to a graduate program. And so I basically decided to just take the GRE and see where I landed. Based upon that, I decided to go ahead and pursue a PhD in the sciences. And one of the key reasons was because I had to pay for graduate school. And if I pursued theology, I would have had to somehow take out a loan to pay for that. And so financially, even though you do not make a lot of money as a grad student, I knew I wasn't going to go into debt. And so that was actually very important to me. So it was basically my love of learning that drove me to get a PhD, whether that was theology or the sciences. For me, that didn't matter as much. I just wanted to be in that academic, rich environment where there was that exchange of knowledge and information, and that I was just being pushed in ways I hadn't been pushed before. So that's why I decided to pursue a PhD. For most PhD programs, you will make a stipend. So for some of my colleagues, we were at UCLA, so Los Angeles is a very expensive city to live in. And so most students were living, at least 2 students were living and sharing an apartment. And a lot of them did have to take out additional loans. I just didn't want to go into any more debt. When you are getting paid, part of that is assuming that you will be a TA. So once I committed to my lab, so that first year you're rotating through 3 labs. That second year I had to start working as a TA in addition to being a grad student. But I loved that. That was why I went to grad school. A large driver was I thought I would go into academia and I wanted to teach. Being a TA was definitely, it's not how we would think of TAs necessarily. Here at Point Loma, it was more of you weren't the true lecturer, but you were kind of a sub-lecturer. And you were the one where students would come for office hours. Is definitely a hybrid between how we teach here at Point Loma.
So what my advisors told me was that most PhD programs in the basic sciences, basic neurobiology that you're going to go into, will have a funding source. Like you don't have to pay for school is what they told me. So I said, oh, okay, good. I don't have to pay for school because I thought a graduate degree would cost a lot. I actually had zero idea that at some programs you do have to work for, as a TA, et cetera. At Harvard, most labs, they had guaranteed funding already, and if a PI didn't have funding, they weren't taking students anyway.
This is one of the great things about graduate school and PhD research is unlike medical school and a lot of other academic endeavors, they're actually going to pay you. Now, this is true in most every kind of biomedical, molecular, kind of bench science research program I know. This may not be true for environmental studies and some of those other ones, but for a lot of the research that I'm talking about, you get a stipend and you actually don't pay tuition. The tuition is paid and you get a stipend that by no means is going to make you rich, but usually should be enough to live mostly comfortably in whatever area of the world you're in. That's an important thing to make sure of if you're applying for this type of program, is that they do have a stipend and that stipend is livable. Now, the stipend itself can come from different avenues. So sometimes to get that stipend, you might have to TA, so you might have to do a little bit of teaching. Sometimes the stipend is just there for the research that you're expected to do for your dissertation anyway. And other times there might be these little caveats that you get the stipend for a couple of years and then you're expected to write these grants and you hopefully get them. But for the most part, even if you don't, that stipend is still guaranteed.
I would say you should only be pursuing this option if you are passionate about research. It is a research degree. If what you love is working with people and how the science applies to their health and wellness, then you should probably think of an advanced degree in medicine. So if you are interested in getting a PhD, I would highly recommend that you do our summer research program. It is the perfect opportunity to spend 40 hours for 10 weeks at the bench over 2 summers. If you hate it, then you should not pursue a PhD. A PhD is basically for somebody who finds that they love to answer questions that we don't know the result. We do not know the answer to that question. You are asking the question and getting to find out the answer for the first time. Nobody else in the world knows it. That's remarkable. But if that doesn't compel you and drive you and excite you, if you are somebody who likes to understand in-depthly what's already been determined, which is noble, then you should probably not think about doing the PhD. The PhD is really for those who find it insanely motivating, exciting, captivating to figure out what isn't yet known. It is a lot of work. It is a pure determination of the will. Once you get into grad school, it's no longer a question of, are you smart enough or not? You are smart enough. The question is, do you really want this? And the question is, do you really want to answer those unanswered questions? And if that doesn't excite you, then the PhD is simply not worth it. If you aren't sure you want to pursue a PhD, then I would say don't apply to a grad program. If you aren't sure, I would say go work in biotech for 2 years. See if you like it. Do you find it exciting to actually work at the bench and you just didn't fully know? And that is noble as well. But you're going to be making a great salary, and then you can apply to grad school. Yes, it's a delay of 2 years of your life, but if you do those 2 years in biotech and decide you hate it, you've saved yourself a lifetime of disappointment and frustration. So I don't think any of the years are wasted if you are continuing to ask yourself those questions of, is this a right fit? Do I actually truly enjoy this and love this? If the answer is no, then that's fantastic to figure out at 22 as opposed to at 42 or 52, et cetera.
Persistence is really important. There were, I was just telling a student who said she might be interested in working in a lab, are you okay with having to repeat something over and over and over again, just tweaking it a little bit at a time, trying to troubleshoot? Because it's not for everybody. And even for people who are pretty persistent, it can be a grind. So I think that's an important, being willing to do that. There's, of course, novelty in what you do, right? And with novelty also comes uncertainty. So if you're also okay with, well, I don't know what's going to happen, but, I have some ideas, but we don't know for sure. And there's a big possibility that we'll fail. But if you're okay with that, that's also an important quality to have. I think I was one of those students where I knew that I wanted to keep studying about the brain. But, beyond that, I didn't really know.
So I tell students all the time that you don't need a PhD, you don't even need a master's to do research. It just kind of depends on what level of research you want to do. So there's a lot of people that have done a great career out of doing research with just a BS, a bachelor's in science. And what you can do with a bachelor's in science is you're actually probably doing more hands-on bench research even than you would if you have a master's or PhD. So if you really like the hands-on science, then maybe a bachelor's of science is for you. The benefit to the bachelor's degree work is you also usually are going home and not worrying about the research as much. You kind of have a set of things that you are going to do, and you're part of a big research team, and these are your jobs and positions and functions for that. And you're an important part of that cog, but you're not in charge of the whole program. So if that's something that's enticing to you, where you're still part of research, you really understand what's going on. I wouldn't say you're just a trained monkey doing work, but you're a part of it, but you're not making those decisions. And therefore also those decisions and the things don't fall on you that you have to worry about at night and so forth, then a bachelor's in science really might be for you. If, however, you want to be a little bit more of a part of the decision-making process, deciding what projects to run and which direction to go with those projects, then you might need a higher degree. And so at the master's level, you're still probably not in charge of everything, but a master's degree in research, at least, usually has a minor thesis. So you'll do a couple of years where you're doing research. You're learning how to think about research and plan research a little bit more. The benefit to that is that it can be a little bit higher paying job, and you have a little bit more maybe managerial control both over people and the project, but you're still not kind of at the highest level. So you're not making massive decisions still, often, and but you're also not taking things home and doing grants and things like that. So there's a benefit to that as well. And then finally, if you really want to kind of think about and be in charge of a project, that's where the PhD route goes. That gives you autonomy, a lot more autonomy over a project. You're kind of often directing the bachelor's degree and the master's degree workers kind of in that project and research. but oftentimes you also end up a little bit less hands-on eventually. So you're kind of more in charge of funding and collaborations and a lot of those things. So at least a little bit later in your career with a PhD, you might really not be at the bench as much as if you were just doing the job as a bachelor's or master's, but you're more involved in kind of guiding the research as well. And so if that's something that's enticing to you, then a PhD might be the direction to go. The reason I chose the Scripps Research Institute is because I really had no idea what specific field I wanted to go into. I was actually a chemistry and mathematics double major in college and only took one biology course. But doing summer research in chemistry, I realized that I actually enjoyed applying chemistry to biological ideas and understanding disease. So I looked for graduate schools that basically had a broad range of fields that you could go into. I was looking for graduate schools where I didn't have to pick microbiology or molecular or immunology or anything specific, but rather had kind of an umbrella program within that. And Scripps was one of the institutes at the time that was kind of at the leading edge of this, where you basically applied to a biology program, and within that you could choose from mentors in a lot of different disciplines. And so what I knew is that I wanted to do something that was translational, and that means had kind of not too distant medical applications, because for me that's something that keeps me motivated and interested. But other than that, I had no idea what I really wanted to do, and so by going to Scripps, I was able to rotate in a bunch of different labs, gain a little bit better idea of what I enjoyed and would want to do, and pick a lab from there. The getting started can probably be the most daunting part. So honestly, you just have to start looking at programs. And so if you think about some primary literature articles that you've read that you really enjoyed and you liked the research that was doing, see where those faculty are. Look at that author list, and especially the corresponding author. That's usually the PI, the primary investigator, and see what institution they're at and see where that comes from. And just start thinking about finding out programs, graduate school, PhD programs that are doing research and that looks interesting to you. I think you have to have an idea of what general type of research you want, and then my advice is to find those research programs that do what's called rotations. And by doing rotations, you don't have to go to a specific lab. You apply to a school, and then the first year you're there, you get a chance to rotate through and see what a few of those labs that you think you're interested in are like. And that gives you a chance to find out what you really enjoy doing. And it also gives you an idea if the atmosphere of the lab is conducive to your success, because sometimes the people doing the coolest research in the world, it can almost be a toxic atmosphere, and you don't really know that until you're there. My advice, coming back full circle to how to go about finding and applying to schools, is find schools that are doing something that's interesting to you. Make sure there's more than one professor there that's doing something interesting to you, because if you go to a place where there's only one that you would be happy in or you like, and you don't like that lab, then you're in trouble. So hopefully there's a range of projects there and a range of groups that are doing something you're interested in. And then you apply and cast a fairly wide net, and hopefully when you get accepted to one of those, the opportunity to rotate gives you a chance to really see what indeed is something that you're going to enjoy and succeed at.
For undergrad, I had done a chemistry major, and although I loved chemistry and atomic structures, I knew that in terms of application, I was more interested in more biological, medical applications of what I was learning. And so I knew I wanted to transition at that point into something more biological in nature. I wasn't actually sure what I wanted to pursue, whether that was immunology or molecular biology or true biochemistry. And so when I was selecting a PhD program, I specifically chose programs that were diverse and more of a conglomeration of multiple departments, where in that first year when you are rotating through labs, I was going to be able to rotate through lots of different departments because I knew I actually didn't know what area I wanted to specifically pursue. So that first year I rotated in an immunology lab and 2 biochemistry labs, and ultimately it was in the biological chemistry department, which was associated with the medical school at UCLA. So lots of human applications of the science that we were doing at the bench. So that was part of the reason I chose that department and that major. You need to set aside a decent amount of time to look at who are the specific professors at that institution. When you are going to go and interview at a school, you should have a list of 5 or 6 different professors that you feel like might be a fit for you. And when you interview at a school, it's not just them interviewing you, you're interviewing them. You are going to invest at least 4 years of your life working in a very small setting with that professor, as well as however many grad students, postdocs are in that lab. So you want to make sure that, one, they're even accepting students. They might not be accepting students, that they've got funding, and then to find out what's the work environment in that lab. And you can find those things out very easily. When you go and interview at the school, you can talk to the grad students and the postdocs. Tell me, what is it like on the weekends here? Are you all working here all weekend, or are you guys out exploring whatever city you happen to be living in? How late are you here at night? And a big part of grad school is you are just going to be working longer hours than you thought imaginable. That being said, it's a very unique time in life, but you're also going to want to make sure that you get along well with the people in the lab. So if you don't see yourself fitting in with those people, then you might want to reconsider it. So super important.
I feel like recommendation letters are a lot more important for grad programs, particularly PhD programs, than, say, professional school, graduate school of other kinds, like medical school or PA or other things. But in that sense, maybe it really does help to have some undergraduate research experience. It doesn't really matter where you do it, on the campus that you're getting your degree, off campus, at somewhere else. But if you have a scientist who can vouch for you, basically, right? Whether it's, and it doesn't have to be always like the best person I have ever worked with in 20 years type of thing, but technically good, have the right qualities, personal qualities, and good team member, things like that, I think count a lot more than a 4.0. I didn't have, social maturity to know that I could even connect and network before applying. I did ask my lab advisor and the direct supervisor in the lab, a postdoc, for their opinion of different programs and things like that. From where I stand now, I would encourage my undergrad students to connect ahead of time. So my very naive approach somehow worked out. Again, I think it's because the recommendation letters from my lab, my undergrad lab, were so good that people were willing to take me without any prior conversation. But even if you know that you're going to have a good recommendation, still you should do a little more research, a little more homework than I did. Yeah, I think so. In my field, in neuroscience, right, because it's such by nature, it's so interdisciplinary. And I guess now these days, most fields are. I understand the kind of anxiety that one might feel, that, or maybe I'm the only one who doesn't know. But that's not true. Out of my cohort of 12, I think about half the people had a specific idea of what they wanted to pursue, but the other half, including myself, we didn't. And we were just exploring and trying different projects in the different rotation labs.
You are going to, in all honesty, be not working for 5 or 6 years, getting a decent salary in a normal job. You are pulling yourself out of the work sector and getting paid very small amount of money. Again, not going into debt, but that's something to consider. Those are your key earning years.
I advise students to consider graduate school. I would think about what you want to do. So if you enjoy discoveries and if you enjoy hands-on research, and kind of really having autonomy over some ideas of your own and really trying to put those forward, then graduate school can be a great route for you.